I simply give a conservative perspective about the world around me. As I like to do in the beginning of the podcast, talk about my social media and audio platforms. Social media, I will link that in this podcast, and audio platforms. I'm on Audible, I'm on Amazon Music, I'm on Spotify for podcasters, I'm on Pandora, and I'm looking to grow to wherever you enjoy your podcast. I'm on there. So for the month of October, I'm going to do special themes, and I'm particularly going to focus in on music and do special themes about Halloween and different varieties of that. So, and to start out of this, I'm going to talk about Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters soundtracks from the Ghostbuster movie 1 and 2 from the 80s. Let's get into this. The soundtrack from 1984 blockbuster comedy Ghostbusters, a New York-based team of spook exterminators, follows the most common soundtrack formula for summer blockbuster hits, including a lot of pop songs that were heard in the movie only for a few seconds. Combine them with a couple of excerpts from the original score, and you have a soundtrack album that helps people get into the spirit of the film and take notice. The major exceptions to the latter complaint, the songs which do conjure memories of the movie, are the two tracks from Elmer Bernstein's score, Mick Smiley's Magic, which played a major role in the film, and the witty Ray Parker Jr.'s theme song, Ghostbusters, which earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Song. He lost to Stevie Wonder's I Just Called to Say I Love You. Years later, Parker's refrain of who you gonna call has remained a part of the cultural lexicon. As far as Bernstein's contribution, he has tendencies to write film music characterized by eerie keyboard, and he does add a little nuances with a little of the scenes he writes for. So now we're talking about Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack in 1989 and versus the soundtrack of Ghostbusters of 1984. So where its predecessor leaned on soft rock and new wave, the soundtrack to the 1989 film Ghostbusters 2 was a snapshot of its time with a blend of R&B, New Jack Swing, and rap, featuring a redone version of Ray Parker Jr.'s original theme by Run DMC, as well as two cuts from Bobby Brown, On Our Own, and We're Back, and New Edition Supernatural. All right, I'm going to talk about some interesting film and musical facts about Ghostbusters. All right, so let me start out with the film facts. The hotline was real. Before the Ghostbusters became established in New York City, they released a commercial to advertise the services. The three original members, Peter, Ray, and Egon, appeared on television with the number 555-2368. During the film's theatrical release in 1984, Evan Reichman ran that very same commercial, which allowed people to call in. Callers could hear a pre-recorded message from Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, who announced that they were unable to answer as they were busy busting ghosts. The number received 1,000 calls every hour, 24 hours a day, for several weeks. Unfortunately, the line is no longer in operation. Ghostbusters was not the original title. Ghostbusters is the iconic title that appears on the screen. It's actually 2 words and not one. Before the filmmakers settled on the now iconic title, Dan Aykroyd originally considered the title Ghost Smashers, while Ghost Breakers was also an option. The sign outside of the Ghostbusters fire station in New York even had variations of these titles during production. Ghostbusters wasn't available at the time because of the unrelated television series that is Ghostbusters in 1975. There's also a 1986 cartoon. In the end, Columbia Pictures obtained the rights, while the real Ghostbusters from 1986 to 1991 was so named to distinguish it from the film version. Slimer is also known as Onion Head. Despite becoming one of the most iconic characters in the entire Ghostbusters franchise, Slimer is never actually named in either of the 2 movies, Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. He was, however, referred to as Onion Head by the crew of the original film. Slimer is based on John Belushi, as well as being called Onion Head by the crew members of the original 1984 film. Slimer also went by another name, the Ghost of John Belushi, something Dan Aykroyd started. Dan Aykroyd has since confirmed that Slimer was heavily inspired by the late John Belushi. The green spook's hankering for food was based on John Belushi's cafeteria scene in National Lampoon's Animal House in 1978. The role of Peter was originally written for the actor. However, he passed away while Aykroyd was working on the script in early 1984. While there are no direct references to the actor in the film Ghostbusters in the Ghostbusters comic book series, some of which even feature Belushi's character, Jake Blues from the Blues Brothers of 1980, which also stars Dan Aykroyd as Elwood Blues. Slimer was never named Slimer until the animated show, The Real Ghostbusters, in which he's a part of the team. It's what was inspired by his friendly cameo in Ghostbusters 2, in which he offers Louis Tully, Rick Moranis, a ride in a town car. Slimer isn't referred to by the name we know now as Gozer. The 2 minions, Vince, and the Keymaster and Zool, Gatekeeper, are never referred to as Terror Dogs, despite the Hellhounds now being synonymous with the name. Eddie Murphy was offered the role of Winston. Winston was supposed to join the team a lot earlier and would have been in the scenes where the Ghostbusters captured Slimer. Earlier versions of the script also included a backstory which detailed his time in the Air Force, something the Ghostbusters comic book series utilizes. Eddie Murphy turned down the role of Winston Zeddemore, and when the studio consequently wanted to give Bill Murray a bigger role in the film, this forced major rewrites in the script, which led to the character of Winston being omitted from many scenes. It was supposed to be a futuristic adventure. An earlier concept for the film was more out there than what was produced. Even Reitman and Harold Ramis in a DVD commentary that They talk about the story that was originally set in a futuristic New York City where teams of readily established Ghostbusters would be found all over the world, as well as several huge supernatural entities. This would have set the studio back $300 million at the time, which is why Rames was brought on board to make some much needed rewrites. It's all inspired by a real Ghostbuster. Ghostbusters is inspired by real-life paranormal investigators, both of whom are directly related to Dan Aykroyd. Aykroyd's great-grandfather was an active believer in the supernatural, while Aykroyd's late father, Samuel Peter Aykroyd Sr., wrote the book A History of Ghosts in 2009. Dan Aykroyd is well known for his interest in psychic research and also UFOs. Now, here are some interesting musical facts about the movie Ghostbusters. The song was a #1 hit. 2 months after the release of the film, Ghostbusters reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on August 11, 1984. It stayed at the top of the charts for 3 weeks. Lindsey Buckingham almost wrote the theme. Rumor has it that the Fleetwood Mac singer and guitarist was approached to write the theme, but he passed on it. Buckingham didn't want to have the label as a soundtrack artist, as he had already written a song for National Lampoon's Vacation the year before. Ray Parker Jr. sort of retired when he was approached to write the song. Before Ghostbusters, Ray Parker Jr. made a name for himself with #1 hits, including The Other Woman and I Still Can't Get Over Loving You. According to an HLN interview, he sort of retired because his parents had gotten sick. But he later went to LA to work with New Edition on the band's song Mr. Telephone Man. And it was because of this collaboration, Parker Jr. was approached by a friend at Columbia Pictures to write for the Ghostbusters soundtrack. Clive Davis didn't want Ray Parker Jr. to write the theme song. Davis, the founder of Arista Records, was not crazy about the idea of having his artist write the theme song for a film about ghosts. In an interview with the Screen Crush, be it that, Ray Parker Jr. revealed, "All of my songs are romance songs." So, in Clive Davis' defense, we had built an entire career of me singing to girls. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Clive gets a phone call and I'm singing a ghost song. He just thought that was a little strange. There were a lot of theme songs submitted. Before Ray Parker Jr. signed on to write the theme song, Columbia Pictures went through roughly 60 songs that were submitted, and they didn't like any of them. A TV commercial inspired Parker Jr. to write the theme. According to reports, Parker Jr. had trouble writing the Ghostbusters theme until he saw a commercial on TV that inspired him to write an advertisement jingle, which explains the slogan, "Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters." The music video included 12 famous cameos. In addition to the Ghostbusters star Dan Aykroyd, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson, and Harold Ramis, the music video for Ghostbusters inside a Neo frame. These guests were Carly Simon, John Candy, George Witt, Jeffrey Tambor, Melissa Gilbert, Al Franken, Peter Falk, Terry Garr, Danny DeVito, Chevy Chase, Irene Cara, and Ollie E. Brown. None of the actors were paid to appear in the video. Instead, they were all favors asked by director Ivan Reitman. In fact, the crew made an impromptu visit to the set of John Candy's film Brewster's Millions to get his shot. Okay, so Huey Lewis sued Parker Jr. over the song. Lewis was another artist who turned down the opportunity to work on the Ghostbusters theme. But when Parker Jr.'s song came out, Lewis sued for the track's similarities to the song, quoting, "I Want a New Drug," which was released earlier that same year. The lawsuit was settled out of court, but in 2001, Lewis revealed in an interview with VH1's Behind the Music that Columbia Pictures paid Lewis a settlement. Parker Jr. quickly sued Lewis for breaking his confidentiality agreement from that case. Now, what are my thoughts about the original Ghostbusters and the music and all the interesting facts about it and all of that? I think all of them just shows the examples and tells the stories of how it's important to be precise and important to talk about things that are really complex and present it in a way that is relatable to people. And even with the midst of the legal combat with Ray Parker Jr. and all of this, that's leading back to what I'm talking about. That is an example of unfortunately things that go about of, in my opinion, of getting into the gray areas of fair use, I think, and in the gray areas of things that sound similar, but you don't have any malice behind it. It just, sometimes things are a coincidence, and just trying to be irrespectable about it and bring that back to the importance of telling the story of what you're trying to do and the story of what you're producing, and not letting that just be the whole center around what you're doing. And I think that leads back to the whole idea about Ghostbusters. So, talking about things, as far as paranormal and things of that nature, it's sometimes it, on the surface level, it kind of goofy, not very serious. But I think that putting comedy and using a comedy dream team that was going on with the Ghostbusters helps to make that more noticeable, and in a way to take things more serious about, looking at and thinking about the paranormal aspects of life, of people who think about these things. And I think that, again, going back to making it more relatable, it helps with comedy introducing that. And I think it also goes along the line of slowing things down and telling a good story, and saying a whole lot without saying anything. So what I'm saying about that is in the original movies, a lot of time there wasn't so much dialogue when you would see these in these films, and when you watch these films, a lot is said by action and not talking down to the viewer and expecting the viewer to connect the dots and to see and read in between the lines. And I think that's part of the reason why it has such a strong fan base of the caliber that it has. They appreciate and think about the audience and their viewers. And I think the Ghostbusters series is just another great example of that. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. As I like to say, tune in and turn up. And take care.